I find myself in a financial mess. My position in SOXL, which is the triple leverage ETF for semiconductors. I am up a lot. Like you guys can see, I'm up over 24 grand on this position, and I have 200 shares of it. Market value over $33,000. I'm up over 270% on it. Only today I was up over 15%. Imagine that. And I've got 200 shares of it at an average price of just a little over 44 bucks a share. Let's see the tax lots. SOXL is the Direction Daily Semiconductor Triple X ETF, and I was buying this position all the way back in December 2025. The first lot was on the 9th of December, then on the 10th, the 11th, the 12th, again on the 12th and the 17th of December. Now, the problem that I'm having is that I wrote 2 contracts of cover calls against SOXL with a long time expiration horizon. Nonetheless, I am in a bind because it's trading at a little over 165 bucks a share as of today, which is May 6th, 2026. Trading at nearly 166 bucks a share, and I have a cost basis of just a little over 44 bucks a share. The problem is that I wrote 2 contracts of cover calls at 60, guys, 60 being the strike price. So now I want to see what I can do in order to fix this problem, and I think I am going to ask Gemini. Gemini, I find myself in a little bit of an issue. I have 200 shares of SOXL, which is the Direction Triple X ETF for semiconductors. I'm carrying those shares at an average price of a little over 44 bucks a share. Today, trading at 165 bucks a share. I've got 2 cover call contracts with a strike price of 60. What options do I have? Let's see what Gemini has to recommend.
That is a classic good problem to have that quickly becomes a headache with a leveraged ETF like SOXL. Since the stock is trading at 165.85 and your strike price IS 60, you are deep in the money, ITM, by over $100 per share. Here is a breakdown of your options, considering the high volatility of a 3x leveraged semiconductor fund. 1. Do nothing. Wait for assignment. If you hold until expiration, your shares will be called away. The math. You sell your 200 shares at $60 each, regardless of the current $165 plus price. Result. You keep the asterisk 12,000 asterisk asterisk, 60 times $200, plus the original premium you collected. Pros. Guaranteed profit, no further cash outlay. Cons. You miss out on roughly $21,170 in additional gains. The difference between $165.85 and $60 across 200 shares. 2. Roll up and out. This involves buying back your current $60 calls, buy to close, and simultaneously selling new calls at a higher strike price and a further expiration date, sell to open. The strategy? Because you are so deep ITM, buying back those calls will be very expensive. You would likely need to roll several months out to a much higher strike, e.g., $100 or $120, just to break even on the trade, a net credit or even roll. Pros. You keep the shares and potentially capture more of the upside if SOXL continues to climb. Cons. You are locking your capital up for a long time. In a 3x leveraged fund, a sudden downturn could leave you holding shares that have crashed while you're still stuck in the new contract. 3. Buy to close, the clean break. You simply pay the market price to buy back the 2 contracts and keep your shares. The cost, since the contracts are 105 intrinsic value ITM, IT would cost you roughly asterisk 21,000 plus asterisk asterisk to buy them back. Pros. You now own the shares outright and can sell them at the full market price, $165.85, or hold them. Cons. This requires a massive amount of liquid cash upfront. 4. The net zero exit. You sell your shares and buy back the calls simultaneously. Result. This essentially locks in your profit at the $60 strike plus premium. This is functionally the same as being assigned, but lets you exit the position immediately without waiting for expiration. Key considerations for SOXL. Volatility. SOXL is up over 15% just today. The time value, extrinsic value, on those $60 calls is likely very low because they are so deep ITM. This actually makes rolling slightly easier because you aren't paying much extra beyond the price difference, but the sheer dollar amount is still high. Tax impact. If you've held these shares for less than a year, being assigned will trigger short-term capital gains. If you roll the options, you defer that tax hit, but you're still carrying the risk of a leveraged ETF. Given the current price, what is your primary goal? Are you trying to keep the shares for the long term, or are you just looking for the most tax-efficient way to exit?
Guys, I am in a little bit of a hassle here because I really don't know what to do. I think I am going to do option number 1, where Gemini suggests me to do nothing and wait, because I really have to do the math and see if I was to buy my option back and then immediately sell another cover call like at 100 strike price. I am going to see, because possibly I'm not gonna make a lot of money. I am possibly gonna make a couple $100. I wanna see what Gemini suggests me again if I was to do with option number 2. If I was to go with option number 2, which is roll up and out, can you do the math for me? Like if I were to buy the options back at a current price, and then write another cover call against those shares at a price like 100, which is still very deep in the money. Can you do the math for me?
Rolling a position this deep in the money, ITM, is essentially a defensive maneuver to buy more time and recover some of the lost upside. Because SOXL is currently trading around $165.85, your $60 calls are underwater by 105.85 per share, 21,170 total for 200 shares. When you roll, you are trying to move that strike price higher, while ideally not paying any extra cash out of pocket, a net credit or even roll. Here is how the math breaks down for a roll from 60 to 100. Part 1. The cost to buy to close, BTC. To get out of your current obligation, you have to buy back the two $60 contracts. Current intrinsic value, $165.85, 60.00 equals asterisk 10, 5.85 per share. Total cost to close, 105.85 times 200 equals asterisk 21,170. Note, since the calls are so deep ITM, there is almost no time value, extrinsic value left. You are mostly just paying the raw price difference. Part 2, the credit from sell to open, Santo. To offset that $21,170 cost, you sell two new $100 strike calls further out in time. Target strike, $100. Intrinsic value of new call, $165.85. 100.00 equals asterisk 65.85 per share. Required credit to break even. You need to find an expiration date where the 100 call IS trading for a T-least asterisk 105.85. Extrinsic value needed, $105.85. Price needed, 65.85 intrinsic, equals asterisk 40.00 in time value. The math of the roll, to get $40 of time value on a call that is already $65 in the money, you would likely have to look 6 to 9 months out, e.g., January 2027. Action, price per share. Total, 200 shares. Buyback $60 call, minus $105.85, minus $21,170. Sell $100. Call, future, plus $105.85, plus $21,170. Net cash flow, $0. $0. What did you actually gain? By doing this even roll, you haven't put any new money in, but you have changed your potential outcome. 1. New max profit. If SOXL stays above $100, you will eventually be called away at $100 instead of $60. 2. Additional gain, $100 to $60, times 200 equals $8,000 more profit than your current situation. 3. The trade-off. You are now locked into the position for many months. If SOXL drops from $165 to $110, you are still safe. But if it crashes back to $50, which can happen with 3x leverage, you've lost the chance to sell at $165. Summary recommendation. If you roll to $100, you are effectively betting that SOXL will stay above 100 for the next several months. IFIT does, you pocket AN extra asterisk 8,000. Dotly, $1,000. If you think the semiconductor sector is due for a massive correction soon, it might be better to just let the shares go at $60 and keep your peace of mind. How long are you willing to keep your capital tied up in these shares to chase that extra $8,000?
Well, I believe I'm gonna wait and see what happens I do believe that the semiconductor sector is due for a correction. Also, what do you think it's the best thing I can do given that one contract expires in January 2027 and the other one in January 2028?
Since your contracts have a massive amount of time remaining, January 2027 and January 2028, your issue is actually a very strategic one. Most covered call problems involve expiration dates just days away. You have the luxury of time, but you are also fighting the unique decay mechanics of a 3x leveraged ETF. Here is a breakdown of what makes your situation unique and the best paths forward based on your gut feeling about a correction. 1. The wait and see approach, your current choice. Since your calls don't expire for 8 to 20 months, there is no immediate rush to act. However, there is a catch with SOXL, volatility decay. The risk, SOXL, is designed for daily movement. If the semiconductor sector goes sideways, flat, for the next year, SOXL can actually lose value even if the index doesn't. The reward, if you are right and a correction hits, the price of SOXL will drop much faster than the broader market. If SOXL drops from $165 back toward $80 or $90, the cost to buy back your $60 calls will plummet, allowing you to exit the trade or roll up much more cheaply. 2. The strategic role if you want to capitalize on high IV. Right now, the implied volatility IV on semiconductors is likely sky high because of the recent 15% jump. High IV makes option premiums more expensive. Tactical move. You could buy back the Jan 2028 $60 call and sell a Jan 2027 $100 call. By shortening the time on one contract but raising the strike price, you might be able to capture that $4,000 of upside without moving your expiration further out. Why do this now? If a correction happens later, IV might drop and you won't get as much credit for selling the $100 strike. 3. The legging out strategy. Since you have two separate contracts with different years, you don't have to treat them as one block. January 2027, $60. Treat this as your sacrificial contract. If the sector stays hot, let this one go and take the profit. January 2028, $60. This is your long-term insurance. Because it has so much time left, it will be the most sensitive to a sector correction. If we see a 20 to 30% dip in the next 3 months, this is the specific contract you should look to buy to close first. Comparison of realities, scenario. If you wait, correction occurs. If you wait, sector keeps mooning, SOXL price drops to $90, rises to $220. Call price becomes much cheaper to buy back, becomes nearly impossible to buy back. Your action, close the calls for a small loss/profit and keep the shares. Accept assignment at $60 and walk away with $12,000 cash. My professional take, given that SOXL is currently at an all-time high, $165.85, and up 1,000% in a year, your intuition about a correction is historically sound. The best move right now is likely to do nothing. With your expirations being so far away, you are not in danger of being early assigned unless the person holding your call wants to collect a dividend, and SOXL dividends are usually negligible. One final question to guide the math. What was your original cost basis for the 200 shares? Knowing if you are already up 300% or just 20% on the underlying stock changes how aggressively we should protect it.
It was $44 and change.
At a cost basis of 44 ***, you are INAN, incredible position. Even if you were forced to sell your asterisk 60 strike price tomorrow, you'd be walking away with a 36% profit on the shares, plus whatever premium you originally collected. However, since you have so much time left on these contracts, January 2027 and January 2028, the strategy shifts toward managing opportunity cost versus leverage risk, the math of your profit cushion. Original investment, $8,800, 44 times $200. Current value, $33,170, 165.85 times $200. Locked-in sale value, $12,000, 60 times $200. The unrealized gap, $21,170. This is the amount of profit currently trapped by your covered calls. Why wait and see is your strongest move. Since you believe the sector is due for a correction, waiting is mathematically sound for two reasons. 1. Leverage works both ways. SOXL is a 3x ETF. If the underlying semiconductor index drops by 10%, SOXL will drop roughly 30%. If SOXL drops from $165 to $115, the cost to buy back your calls will drop significantly faster than the stock price because the delta sensitivity of those calls will decrease. 2. Theta is your friend, slowly. While these are very long dated, every day that passes eats away a tiny bit of the time value of those options. If the stock stays flat or goes down, those contracts will eventually become cheaper to buy back. The strategic exit plan, if we do get that correction you're expecting, here is your playbook. Step 1. Watch the 100 minus 110 level. If SOXL dips into this range, check the price to buy to close your January 2028 contract. It might be cheap enough to buy back using just the profits from your other investments. Step 2. Reevaluate the 2027 contract. If you buy back one, you now have 100 shares free to sell at the market price, or write a new, much higher covered call, e.g., at a $180 strike, to collect even more premium. A note on leverage decay. Keep in mind that SOXL isn't meant to be held forever. Over long periods, like until 2028, the daily rebalancing of a 3x fund can erode value if the market is choppy. Since your shares are currently capped at $60, you aren't benefiting from the upside anyway. My advice: don't touch these while the sector is this hot. Wait for the dip you're expecting. If SOXL hits $100 or $120 on a pullback, that is your window to buy back the calls and unlock your shares at a much lower cost than today's $21,000. Does this patience first approach?
Well, guys, this is the situation I find myself in. Regardless, I believe I am going to wait and see. Every time you write a cover call, you gotta be aware that you're gonna get all the downside, but your upside is gonna be capped at the strike price, and this is the perfect example. Guys, I am losing here eventually over $21,000. Now, of course, no one has the crystal ball, and stuff like that happens in the stock market. I believe that not only to me, but to everyone that buys and sells options. But regardless, I feel a lot of remorse for having sold those two contracts. But again, life continues. I'm gonna wait and see what happens, and for right now I have this huge gain of over 24 grand on my cost basis of 8,800. I believe anything can happen, and I hope this video was helpful for you guys. And like it's been said, that a smart guy learns from his mistakes, but a wise guy learns from the mistakes of others.